The last session we ended with a beautiful thought which Ved Vyasa brought out through the Gita, which is a part of our scriptures, that it doesn't matter how we pray, to who we pray, what name we give it, what form we give it, idol worship, non idol worship, book worship, doesn't make a difference. What is important at the end of the day is the prayer in itself. You will get rewarded according to your prayer. If you're using prayer as a bargaining chip, so be it. Hopefully, a lot of us will evolve to a point where we don't use prayer as a bargaining chip. Having said that, as a child, the first thing I learned was if you need something, go ask God for it. And as a child, I also learned socially, we were taught by our parents, our teachers, our peers, that you get nothing unless you give something. So I learned to pray as a bargain. Oh, I want this, I'll keep 4 Monday fast. I want this, I'll give up this. I want this, I'll do this. If you do this for me, I will do this for you. And that is how I learned how to pray. And then slowly but steadily evolved to a point where I started asking in a different way. Instead of asking for something, I started saying thank you for what I knew I will receive. Still bargaining, but bargaining with gratitude. That thank you, I know you're going to do this for me. Thank you so much for having received it. Law of attraction, using it to the maximum, using the attitude of gratitude, but bargaining none the same, looking for something. And then came the realization that prayer was just sheer love. There was no need to ask, no need to give, no need to do anything. Today, when I sit in prayer, when I sit in meditation, all I have and all that I tap into is the energy of the universe, and it is pure, undiluted, unconditional love. And it's an amazing experience. When I started sending out love, I started receiving that love, which is exactly what our scriptures said, that it doesn't matter how, where, when, what, why. What you send out, you will receive. And that is true not just for prayer, that is true for all our thoughts. It is true for everything we do in life. I actually understood the meaning of bhakti. I understood the meaning of devotion. I understood the meaning of arpit karna, giving up of myself. And that is what Ved Vyas was trying to explain up to stanza 11. In stanza 12, he goes a little further to say that men meaning generically human beings worship God because they want immediate results, they want immediate fruit of their activities. Like I said, prayer, worship is a bargaining chip that people use again and again. It is easier to attain worldly success than to attain knowledge, because knowledge demands renunciation. Renunciation not of the world, not of living, renunciation of ego, renunciation of arrogance, renunciation of desires, renunciation of characteristics, our very own temperament. And that is why men worship to get success, not for self evolution or for growth. Krishna goes on to say that I created human beings in different, we have talked of this before, that people were created or classified into gunas. But the gunas were on the basis of their characteristics, the basis of their temperament. A caste system was created. The caste system was not created to create a diversity in people. It was created to categorize people depending on their characteristics, depending on their nature, depending on their vasanas, depending on their gunas. And the four castes that were created were Brahmin, where the quality was sattvic, purity, goodness, and anybody who had this quality, the sattvic quality, was called a Brahmin. Not because he was born in a Brahmin household or because he was the son of some Brahmin. He was called a Brahmin because of his purity, his thought, the sattvic nature he had. Then you had the Kshatriya, where the Rajasic gun was higher. Rajasic was courage, valor. And anybody who had that courage, that valor, that that spirit of militancy, not in a negative way, but that the way a warrior has, where a warrior will fight for his rights of others. Rajasic gun, and these people were classified as Kshatriyas. Then you had the Vaishyas, where there was a combination of the Rajasic and the Tamasic guns. Tamasic was indolence, laziness, ignorance, and these were the Vaishyas. So they had a combination of the Rajasic, which was courage, valor, but they've also had laziness, and they had ignorance. And when the two coupled together, they became the Vaishyas. And the last, you had the Shudras, where only the Tamasic gun was predominant. So the caste system was created because of your characteristics, not because of where you were born or your lineage. And this is what he's explained again here, that this is why Krishna says, I. And if you remember in this chapter from now onwards, Krishna is talking of himself as divinity. He's not talking as a coward. He's not talking as a normal human being. He is talking as I the supreme, I the creator. And that is what he explains. And then he says that Krishna goes on to say that I don't take rebirths because, and again he's repeating himself, I don't take rebirths to reap the fruit of my actions because I am not bound by my actions. I am not result oriented or desire oriented. I have none of these gunas. I am free of all characteristics, all the gunas. I'm above all of it. And that is why whenever I've taken rebirth, and we know that there have been so many avatars, but every time he's taken rebirth, it has not been because of the cycle of life and death. Krishna goes on to explain that the person who has given up on the I, that identification of I, me, myself, which comes with a very limited ego, and rediscovered or re identified himself with the self, the soul, the Atma, or the Brahmin inside us, is no longer affected by his actions in the outer world. What he is trying to explain is that the reason he, as God or as the creator, is not affected and does not take a rebirth because of his actions in the outer world, because he's gone beyond the ego. He's gone beyond the duality. He's understood the singularity and has understood the Brahman, the Atma, the soul. And because of that, any action that is done does not result in a reaction, does not result in a karmic factor, hence, no cycle of life and death, which all of us are caught into. He says that the self has no desire for fruits of the actions. We have dealt with this again and again, that we have absolutely no desire. The place we need to get to is a point where there is no desire for the result of what we do. Because there is no desire, then you cannot be tainted by it or spoiled by it. And because of this, there is no ego, there is no attachment, there's no expectation. And he is telling Arjun that become like this. Do not focus on the result of your action. We have to keep remembering that the start of the Gita is about Krishna telling Arjun to do his duty. So come back to that. He is giving Arjun the reason that do your duty. Do not get attached to the result of what your duty is. That is not important. Do not be result oriented. Let go of your ego. Let go of your I. Focus on the Brahmin or the soul inside you, and you will do your duty to the best of your ability. He tells him the ignorant perform an action for self gratification. The wise perform an action for the maintenance of the world. Remember, The world is a large cooperative. We all work together to create that harmony and peace. The wise know that, understand that, and work towards that as a principle, whereas the ignorant work only for self gratification. I know he said this again and again and again, but fact of the matter is that it is so important. Even when we look at self evolution, if we only work towards self evolution, then also somewhere down the line we are being selfish because we're only working on ourselves. Somewhere we have to work as a greater whole, for the greater whole, so that everybody, from that smallest ant to that largest elephant, or whatever you want to call the smallest to the largest, everybody benefits with the whole, which is basically what he's trying to say. That here he's gone a step further, where he said that even if you work for self purification, that is being ignorant because you're only working for yourself. Work for the greater good, work for the betterment of everybody. He tells Arjun to perform action in a disinterested spirit. He says, and we've again done this before, that you can perform your duty without getting attached to the performance, without getting performed attached to the action in itself. Ved Vyas goes on to explain to to Arjun what is action, what is forbidden action, what is inaction. He says it is very hard to understand action. We can't oversimplify action and inaction, and it becomes very, very confusing. So he explains it in detail. He says action is that which is prescribed by the scriptures and not just approved by men. Basically, what he's saying is go back into our ancient learnings. There were very wise men out there, and we do know that because even today, there is no scripture, no book, no knowledge that is parallel to what we have in the Vedas. To be very honest, there is nothing that even parallels in today's world the knowledge that is there in the Bible or in the Quran. These are our ancient scriptures which contain the kind of knowledge which we cannot even begin to understand today. So he says that knowledge, action is that which is prescribed by the scriptures and not just approved by men, because men can approve something which can come out of ego, out of self gratification, out of selfishness. So it has to be a combination of both, prescribed by the scriptures, prescribed by our ancient knowledge, and approved by men. That is action. Inaction is renunciation of action, giving up of any action. And he says there is forbidden action, which is forbidden by the scriptures. So there's a lot of emphasis that has been put on the scriptures here, because somewhere down the line, if you remember, when the Mahabharat came out, when the Gita was told, it was a time when people were blindly getting into rituals, ritualistic practices, and the Gita was a way of bringing back knowledge, bringing back the correct Vedic way of life, which is why the emphasis that has been placed on following the scriptures, that do not blindly. And also, if you understand, if you go into the scriptures, you take away the power of men, priests, pundits have so much of power over people because they are picking up bits and pieces from here and there, putting it forward as knowledge and using it to control other people. The scriptures are the purest form of knowledge, and the beauty of the scriptures, and why it is being said, go back to the scriptures. The beauty of our scriptures is that they give you a lot of paths, they give you a lot of knowledge, but do not dictate what doctrine to follow, what path to follow, how to follow. They give you the freedom to create your own path. If none of these paths work for you, then create your own path. We've seen already up to chapter 4 how many paths has Krishna shown to Arjun. Karam yoga, yoga of knowledge, bhakti yoga. How much has he shown? It is the beauty is each one of those paths leads to the same goal. That is correct action. But in this case, correct action. But he has till now not dictated, in spite of being asked repeatedly by Arjun, has not dictated that, oh, go down this path or go down that path or go down that path. He is the living epitome of what our scriptures are saying, which is giving you a lot of ways, a lot of tools, a lot of methods, but not telling you which method is the best. You have to find your method, you have to find which way is the best, and you have to follow it. And that is why, again and again, they're saying, go back to the scriptures, go back to learn. They're not saying go back to the scriptures because the scriptures dictate a path. Go back to the scriptures to understand what path resonates with you and follow that path, or combine a lot of things together and make a path for yourself. Up to you. He says life is made up of moments of activity and inactivity. When you get into inactivity, you will neither have progress nor deterioration. You'll come to status quo because you are inactive. It is only during periods of activity that creation happens, evolution happens. And this creation, this evolution depends on the kind of activity a person undertakes. Activity or karma, karam, is not just ritualism. It encompasses all dedicated actions. Any action that is dedicated can be called an activity, can be called a karma. This is not as karmic as what we are talking of, but this is karam, something we have to do, an action we have to do. Basically, what Ved Vyasa has gone and done is he has classified karam or action into classifications of three kinds. He says there's Nitya Karam, which is daily duties. There is Nemitika Karam, which is special duties on special occasions. And there's Kamya Karam, which is desire driven or duties done expecting rewards. So obviously, Nitya Karam is important to do. And in classification, Nitya Karam can be simple things like brushing your teeth, having a bath, eating food, whatever. Those are daily activities that are nitya karam. Then there is nemitika karam, which is special duties on special occasions. So you could have a special duty as the father of the bride to give away your daughter, or anything that combines into the special. There could be an auspicious day, you're doing something special on that day. So those are all special duties. Like as a grandmother, you have special duties towards your grandchildren, or as a parent, you have special duties towards your children, or as children, you have special duties towards your parents. That is your nemitika karam. And then kamya karam, where you're doing activities. And I think most of the world gets caught up in a lot of the kamya karam, which is desire driven duties or duties done expecting rewards. Because I think most of us go through life doing actions, waiting for results, getting the result, doing another action, waiting for the result, getting the result, moving on, not getting the result, getting frustrated, trying something else. That is, we all get caught into that cycle. The Nitya Karam we all do without even realizing it. He advises Arjun not to do vikarma. Vikarma is the bad karma or activities that prohibit development, activities that actually create bad energies, and also says reject a karma, which is no activity. Those are not good for you. They don't when you do vikarma, you're going to spiral in a downward spiral. When you do a karma, which is no karma, no action, you're going to maintain a status quo. Neither are you going to progress, nor are you going to deteriorate. You're just going to stay there. And that is not healthy either. A very beautiful statement that he makes. If motives are pure, actions will be noble. If motives are impure, the actions will be accordingly. We have again done this in a previous chapter where we have discussed that if you don't leave all the learnings aside, leave everything aside, if you don't understand any of this, just understand that from your heart, what you're doing, if it comes from a good place, the results will be good. If it comes from a bad place, the results will be bad. Remember what he said in stanza 12, stanza 11, what he said: I give back the way you ask or the way you behave. Literally, if we come from a bad place, we are only going to generate bad energy and get back bad. If we come from a good place, even if our actions are not perfect, they're not absolutely the way they should be. But if we come from a good place, if our motives are good, if our motives are pure, we will get back good, we will get back good results out of it. We need to remember that. And having said that, guys, there's one very little thing that I did want to talk about, which is my mantra. I have followed it my entire life, and I hope you guys follow it too. When we have a bad thought, when we gossip about others, when we think bad or we think negatively, we don't look for a place or a time or the perfect asana or that temple or something to do it. We just do it on the fly. We do it as we are living our day to day life. Then why do we wait for a time, a place, or a mandir or something to do something good? The same way you can do good on the fly without having to wait. Do not wait for it. If you want to pray, and I literally mean this, if you want to pray and you are sitting on the WC in your bathroom, please pray. It is not wrong to do that, because when you're sitting on the WC in your bathroom, you can have all the negative thoughts you want in the world. You can also have all the positive thoughts in the world. There is no prescribed right way or right place where you think correctly or to pray or to meditate. It doesn't matter. Where and how doesn't matter. The what is what is important. And I have been meaning to talk about this for a while. I hope all of you can follow this because I do. I will sit in prayer. In fact, the time I actually am the most connected is when I brush my teeth. I am I'm in a trance when I'm brushing my teeth. That is when I'm the most connected to my creator. It's like I'm so lost. There are times I could be brushing my teeth for 5 minutes without even realizing I've been, 5 minutes and I've been going on and on. My poor enamel suffers for it, but it's okay. And we come to stanza 18. Stanza 18 is literally the central theme of this chapter. Here, Christian goes to explain action and inaction, where he explains the concept of action in inaction and inaction in action. Complicated tongue twisters, but actually are not that complicated. They are reasonably easy to understand. First and foremost, we need to understand that there is nothing known as inaction. The entire cosmos is in a constant state of vibration. So it's constantly moving, it's throbbing, it's pulsating. How can there be inaction? They can't. Our very cells inside our body are constantly in a state of motion. So inaction itself is a little it's a concept I can't understand. How can you be inactive is something I have never understood, because nothing is inactive. Our body is constantly working, the world is constantly working, the universe is constantly working. Action is, Ved Vyasa has explained this so beautifully. He says action is anything that produces a reaction completing a karmic cycle. Action is not just relegated to physical activity, because action can be a thought, a word, a, a gesture, an emotion. All these are actions because they're creating vibrations. The moment they're creating vibrations, there is going to be a reaction to it. They become actions. So every action of ours, what he's trying to explain is that every action of ours should be such. And literally, when he's saying action, he means the very thought inside our head, the intent we have, the emotion we have, everything should be such that it only creates a positive reaction and not a negative reaction. And that is the way the cosmos was created. He summed it up so beautifully. The basic formula for selfless action is choose the right goal, use the right means, leave the results to God. And that is action. To explain it, the right goal could be unity or reconciliation rather than winning or conquering. It could be nonviolence. Gandhiji did this so beautifully. Not that I'm a very big fan of Gandhiji, but he did follow this beautifully. He chose the right goal, used the right goal, unification of India, freedom for India, used the right means, which was non-violence, and left the results to God. Very important in the right action that you must be detached from the fruits of your action. We have talked about that again and again and again. Inaction, like I said, there is nothing that I know as inaction because in a constantly moving cosmos, inaction is impossible. It is just something that you can't do. I can sit down like this very still and say, oh, I am inactive. But am I really inactive? My inside is working, my heart is pumping blood, my lungs are drawing in oxygen, the digestive system is working, I'm taking a breath, everything is happening. So how can I be inactive? Then on top of that, my brain has a myriads of thoughts that are happening inside the brain. So how is there inaction? That is something I really have never understood. What he talks of the concept of inaction in action. That means you have action with inaction. Basically, what he's trying to explain here is the very simplistic concept that do not get attached to your actions. Do actions selflessly. Do an action not as a result of a reaction. Do action which is not result oriented. Do action without looking at what you're going to get out of it. Do action without desire, without fear, without anger, without any emotion. Do the action for the sake of action because it needs to be done. And that is inaction in action, where we are physically active, we are doing whatever that needs to be done, but that inside, that self inside us, we recognize it. It's there, whether we recognize it or not. But here, inaction and action means to recognize that self, to recognize that duality, and to understand that that self, that soul, that Brahman is doing nothing. It is a third party spectator to what is happening. Hence, there is no ego, there's no emotion, there's no attachment, there's no nothing, there's no reaction invoked inside of us, and that action is called inaction in action. And very, very, very important for all of us to learn, because that is honestly where peace of mind comes from. What he's also talking about is the conscious mind and the subconscious mind. You have the conscious mind, which is your beta level, or the way you are completely aware, you're talking, you're acting. It's like I'm in beta level, I am consciously talking, acting, whatever. My conscious mind is in play. The subconscious is sitting, watching the conscious mind, but not interfering. It is only when, so that is inaction, where my subconscious has not interfered with my conscious working with what I'm doing right now. Inaction in action. It is only, but at the same time, even if my conscious mind goes to sleep, my subconscious mind will continue to work. There is never a stopping of activity. Important to know, important to understand. Now we are talking of action in inaction. What is inaction? As I've already said, that there is nothing known as inaction. You have action and inaction, where a person is doing everything, is getting somewhere, doing his activities, doing everything, but is detaching from it. Your inside is silent. Your self is silent. The Brahmin inside you knows that it is not the doer. It is not about the I, me, myself. It is not the one that is actually working. Everything is external. Everything is the unreal. Everything is happening. And when you have that action, that is action in inaction, where basically this is the crux of duality. If you understand it, you have duality where you have the self, the Brahman, the soul, and you have the outer manifestation, this body, the world, people, material, everything. The crux of it, action and inaction, or inaction and action, the crux of it is to understand the duality, understand the two, and understand that at the bottom line, the inside, the self, the Brahman, is never a part of anything. It is not the doer. It does not have the ego. It does not have the arrogance. It does not have the desires. It is sitting outside, watching everything that is happening. And that is the crux of this theory. It is also the crux of Karam Yoga, but Karam Yoga understood through the path of Gyan Yoga. This is the Gyan part of the Karam Yoga, which is action in inaction or inaction in action. This is the Gyan part. Remember what he had said, that Karam Yoga is the path to Gyan Yoga. The two are interconnected. You can have one without the other, but to actually get to Gyan Yoga, you have to come to Karam Yoga, but it's also the other side of the coin. This is the knowledge that is coming from Gyan Yoga, which becomes the essence of Karam Yoga and how to be the perfect Karam Yogi. The self of the man is actionless. And it is only through right knowledge a man sees inaction in action. He understands that whatever action that is happening is, it is something you have to do. It is duties. It is the right thing. It is whatever you have to do. But the self is not doing it. The self is not involved because the self is sitting back and understanding that this is all unreal. It too shall pass. So it is not involved with it. It does not get affected by it. It does not get bothered by it. And that is literally the crux of this chapter, to understand action in inaction and inaction in action. Reiterates what he said in stanza 18 about action and inaction. And he says the self, when it has the knowledge, when we get the knowledge about the self, it becomes a fire that consumes us and removes that fire. It is like purification by fire. That fire of knowledge burns out ego, desire, fear, anger, emotions, results, anything, burns it out. To understand, we become desireless. Having said that, we don't become desireless is not negative. Desireless is equanimity of mind. It is reaching that peaceful place. It is coming to a point where we are so calm and peaceful, where we are not affected by anything that happens in our life. We have no reactions. Very importantly, we don't have fears and we don't have anger. Having said that, he says this does not mean that the path of action is to act without He's bringing it down to reality, that it is not that you don't have to keep your eye on the result or on what you're getting. It does, the path of action doesn't mean you're completely renouncing and becoming so detached that you are absolutely, couldn't care less. That is not what he means. What he's trying to say is remove our mental dependence, remove our attachment to the desired or expected results of our activities. That is what he's trying to say. The problem is we do get dependent. We do get we get very attached, very dependent to the results of whatever we are trying to do. He says, don't have that dependence, don't have that attachment. Yes, you can look at the results, you can look at the an action and what result it will create. Actually, even when was born on earth, when Christian was born, why was he born? He was born to with a desire to create a better world, to remove adharma. The difference was he was not attached to the results. If today Arjun had decided he was not going to fight the war, it would not have devastated Krishna in spite of the fact he spoke 18 verses of Gyan to Arjun. He would not, 18 chapters of Gyan to Arjun. He would not have been distressed or disturbed if Arjun had not accepted and waged the war, and this Kurukshetra war had not happened. That is what he's trying to explain here, that it is not a detachment. You can have a look at the results, but don't get attached to the results. Don't get married to the results. Don't become dependent on the results that it affects you to such an extent. And one of the biggest reasons why we have depression today, we have people suffering from high blood pressure, we have heart diseases, we have all kinds of ailments that are happening and on the rise, because we create so much of angst inside us because of our dependence or our attachment to the result of any action we take. Today, you say a good word to somebody, you expect them to pat you on the back and appreciate that good word. Why? You said a good word because you wanted to say a good word. If it gives you back a result, good. If it doesn't, move on. That is what he is trying to say. It is an attitude of non attachment to the results of your action. And this is what makes you anxiety free and desire free. Anxiety is a direct result of desire. Higher the desire, the higher the anxiety. Directly proportionate. The higher the desire, an action is done, there is so much of anxiety during that action because the desire to achieving something is so high. Today, if I'm blindly desiring to get a promotion at work, every action that I do is towards the desire of getting that promotion. I've created so much of stress, so much of tension during the process of doing that action. First and foremost, my firm belief, when you add this kind of anxiety, this kind of stress to any action that you do, you can never perform the action to the best of your ability. The best actions that you do, which are as perfect as possibly can be, is when they are done with zero stress, zero anxiety, and actually, yes, zero focus on the goal. Because if you're focusing on the goal, how can you focus? It's simple mathematics. If I'm focusing on the goal, it means I'm focusing on the future. When I'm focusing on the future, what is happening to my present? It's becoming a big zero. Actions that I have to do are in the present, they're not in the future. The goal is in the future. So, any which way you look at it, when you add desire, anxiety, stress to any action that you do, the results may or may not be exactly what you want. And if the results are not what you want, all you've done is given yourself one hell of a lot more of stress. And in any case, you have not performed to the best of your ability. A person who understands it, who does not get attached to the goals or the results, becomes anxiety free, desire free, and this person becomes content. He gets tripti. Tripti is a beautiful Hindi word that means satiation. That person, the only person who can get satiated, become completely content and at peace, is a person who understands this very valuable lesson. Most people spend their entire lives depending on the results of their actions, and their happiness and their sadness is dependent on those results. If you're a Brahmin, if you're a knowledgeable man, you understand not to become dependent. And then what you do becomes so beautiful, it becomes perfection. And on this note, we are going to end this session here.